All right, folks, we're back. BuildAssetsOnline.com. Mike is him. I'm Joe. We're going to be talking about hiring a salesperson for your high-ticket dropshipping store. Kind of a next level type thing. If you're a beginner, it might not be directly on your radar, but I would still say something that's extremely, extremely important. This is something that we've put into place recently on the store that we plan on selling for a few million, the one that we are working towards, the store that we're working towards that on. We hired a salesperson, and I would say that it's really changed a lot of things for the store. It allows the store to kind of keep growing with very, very little action on our end, and that's what we want. And before I prompt Mike to talk a little bit about that process, one thing I want the audience out there to consider is that there's really, really a hard limit on the number of actions that you can take in a given week or a given month or in a given day to grow your store. So even if you are doing the selling and you're new at it and you're taking phone calls and you're selling, that's great, and you can continue like that. But the only way you're gonna level up the whole situation or level up your whole online business portfolio in general is if you hire a salesperson and then you start to put the next piece in place for a store or for another project. And that's kind of what we're doing now. So why don't you walk us through the process, Mike? So first question, where did we find this salesperson?
Indirectly through Craigslist. So we had hired a separate employee that also, I guess, is now one of our salespeople, through Manila Craigslist, or a Craigslist in the Philippines. And this was a former colleague of them. But the important thing I want to say before we get into the actual salesperson type thing is when you start out, just first thing you do is you need to hire one person. So we usually recommend having that person do existing order stuff, so that way they can learn the business. And then once they learn existing orders, and they learn like the actual process of what dropshipping stores look like from the standpoint that we do them, then they can begin taking sales calls. But you need to understand that as you get more freedom from outsourcing that part of the business, the existing sales, and sometimes sometimes incoming phone calls for people to buy stuff, you'll be able to grow your store much more because you'll be able to call suppliers and spend more time working on ads and do different things like that, or even start a new store that they can also work on. So the economies of scale really start to take place, and then you'll become big enough to where one person just needs to have one job. So they just do existing orders. And then once you have that, then you can branch out and hire someone else to specifically do sales. And so, that's what we did. And we have probably 2 or 3 separate salespeople at this point.
Cool. So we found this individual indirectly on Manila Craigslist. I remember we interviewed him. So what kind of questions do you recall asking in the interview? I mean, I remember kind of just asked him to tell us a little bit about his sales background, kind of walk us through the process of how he would handle our customers on our stores. But is there anything specific you think that could give people some insight of the types of questions you can ask when you're interviewing a salesperson?
I think the biggest teller would be before you go to interview them, you give them some insight as to what your actual store is. And when you go to interview them, they need to have already done some research. So this is something that they should do on their own. Like, you shouldn't have to tell them to do it, but they should automatically want to do it in order to present themselves in a competent way. That's what any decent salesperson would do. So it's not necessarily about like whatever work history background they give you. It has to do with the actual way that they are able to talk, if they're persuasive in the interview even, and just like intangibles like that. Things that you may not ask for, but they go ahead and do anyway. That would show you, okay, they're committed to actually learning, because hiring a salesperson is going to be the hardest person to train most of the time.
Yeah. So, I mean, if they can't sell themselves to you, it's going to be difficult for them to sell your products to your customers. I think that's a good way to put it, is that it should be pretty apparent their skill level going into the interview. And I remember when we did this recent interview, I think we were kind of both in agreement that this individual seemed to know what he was doing. As soon as we talked to him, it was clear he had a sales history. He was able to walk us through that, and present us with ways that made sense that he would sell our products. So it's not like it's going to be, a big mystery and you need to look for like tells of a good salesperson. It should be pretty obvious. So let's talk a little bit about keeping that salesperson motivated, because I think that is a big factor with sales. People who are in sales, they're not the type that wants to just sit back and la-di-da and just kind of collect an hourly rate. These people are driven not only monetarily, but I think mentally by commissions. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, they do sales, I think, because it gives them some sort of fulfillment in that, like the one thing I hated about my job was that even if I worked harder, I was not going to get paid any more for that particular day.
Yeah.
And most salespeople probably feel the same way. So
yeah, totally. As a bit of an aside, I remember, so when I was younger, I was a teenager, I would wait tables, and I waited tables for a long time. And then obviously I was compensated on like tips. You get, the better you do, the more tips you get. And it was great. But then one day I went to work in a supermarket because I was like, I'm like, this is too stressful. I went to work in a supermarket where I was like also handling food. I was making salads because they had like a salad bar. And I remember thinking, oh my God, like after like 4 days, I was like, I'm doing the same thing and I'm not getting paid anymore. This is so boring. I'm just waiting for my raise that I can get every year. I can get like a 25-cent raise. So the salespeople are those type of people. They're motivated by, they're not happy with just coming to work, doing their job, and going home. I think they seek some sort of fulfillment at the job. So let's talk a little bit about like how you come up, like what's a good commission rate for a salesperson? How are we determining this?
I don't have a good answer for that because I think every store is different. What we do is, actually as a side note, one of my good friends works for a bigger company, and essentially it's like it's a huge company that they sell different like office products and similar things to companies like Comcast or Microsoft or just like really, really big companies. And so they're essentially drop shipping, right? Because they're going to the manufacturer, they're saying, hey, we need 10,000 of these wires, and then they send these wires to Comcast. So they also get paid a lot on commission, and the percentage that they get is so small, like less than probably 0.1%.
Yeah.
So it really has to come down to your store and your margins and what you feel is fair. So I would say when you advertise the job, don't put the commission rate in there yet. Just say there will be commissions, and that should be enough to attract people. And then after, you evaluate their performance, first of all, I would do no commissions for like the first couple months because it's essentially training, because you're going to need to be sort of answering their questions as they go along, really helping them adapt to your process. And then after that, you can see, okay, how much money are they making me? How much time is it freeing up? And you can evaluate as to, what you think is a fair chunk. But that's what it is about being a business owner. You have to make these decisions that will benefit your employees and benefit you. So,
yeah, I think the answer you gave there is really similar, and not surprisingly so, to the way that we answer a lot of questions about how we make decisions in our business. Is what's the margin? How much money do I get out of this if I sell it, or if I get an affiliate commission, versus how much money am I putting into it? And that is really where you should be seeking the answers to those questions as well. You don't just come up with a number out of thin air. Always look at your numbers and what you stand to make and what you stand to lose to come up with that. And
you don't need to be like, you don't need to set a flat rate, but just be honest, because there's a lot of other things that go into running this business, right? You have to do the ads, you have to hire the other people that work in the company. There's so many things that are going on, and those all eat into each individual profit, especially ad spend. So you can even do commissions individually based on, okay, like how much money do we make off this brand? How much did they sell off this brand? I will give out the commission accordingly. And so, there should always be a form of open communication to make sure that what you're giving to your employee is satisfactory. But at the same time, you're not running a Fortune 500 company and you need all these crazy structures. Like just the simple fact of, if you can give a employee a sizable bonus for wherever they're living, they will be happy with that, and they will be continually motivated to work. So you need to be constantly monitoring, okay, are they making a lot of sales for me? Is what I'm giving them noticeably motivating, and evaluate from there.
I would say actually, Mike, that's not far off how a Fortune 500 company might do things. I mean, I feel like when people get bonuses, and I know I've gotten bonuses in the past, it doesn't really seem like it's based on anything sometimes. I feel like sometimes you just get a bonus. You don't know like what kind of bonus you're going to get. And sometimes you're like, oh man, like I'd rather, like, it's like almost insulting. Like I'd rather you not give me the bonus. But other times like, oh wow, I can't believe I got such a big bonus. Like let's go buy a car. So yeah. I mean, yeah, that's what you're saying is totally within the realm of reason. So I want to move on to, so when you hire a salesperson, you train them on the products, they've gotten some phone calls, they're getting some good experience with the store. What kind of tips and insights can you give people for, how they can better manage leads and just stay on top of like what should they be doing on a day-to-day basis when the calls are not coming to them?
Yeah, so as far as lead management, I think Asana is a pretty good tool. It should be free. If not, it's, I don't know, probably cheap. But Asana is like a task management tool. So every call or email or inquiry that the salesperson gets, they can note that down and then note a follow-up date and have that reminder set in Asana. So that way every day they have a list of customers they need to contact along with the new leads that will be coming. So, it kind of builds up their lead flow, I guess you can call it. And then, as far as like training and stuff, I think the best way to do product training is on a brand by brand basis, because that's the real specific like thing about what we do versus other e-commerce stores and other types of business models is we're just communicating with different brands and we're selling everything on our own website. So the communication with the different brands is the hardest part. Each brand is going to have their own set of little nuances, types of, how much discount you can offer on this brand, how much discount you can offer on this brand. So you have to really break it down on that level. And if you have a lot of brands, it can take time, but it's really the most effective way to do it.
Yeah. Well, one thing you implied there is that the salesperson, as part of how you're training them, it should be a proactive role. It shouldn't necessarily be a reactive role in the sense that they're just sitting there and they're waiting for the calls to come in. They should be following up with people, correct?
Yeah, they should be doing something at all times.
Yeah.
You have existing customers. You have, again, if you're at the point of you're hiring a salesperson, you should be having a lot of calls come through. But even after after a couple months of working, they should have their own list of leads that is built up that they can use to, follow up, see what's going on. So yeah, any good salesperson should be doing that, and you should have a system that they can easily note down all the new people that are coming in, and even, again, going after old leads, old customers, or you could have them cold call, like, if it's a business to business type product, you can have them cold call the business that it would be relevant for.
Yeah. And it's important to understand, guys, is that you're not going to hire a salesperson and you might not know all the pieces right away when you hire them. So you might hire them and realize, okay, they're taking some phone calls, but they have, there's essentially 3 hours a day when they're kind of just sitting twiddling their thumbs. And a good salesperson in an ideal world, they might know like, hey, I should follow up with the leads that from like last week. But it's important for you to also be on top of them, be like, not on top of them, not like micromanaging them, but also always thinking like, oh, okay, we have all these abandoned carts here. Maybe we should have him or her call the abandoned carts. So
Yes. Forgot to add that one.
yeah, stuff like that.
Probably what you were waiting for me to say.
No. Well, I was just always I'm just kind of trying to illustrate to people that you should be thinking as they're working, like just get them hired, have them take the calls, and then start to realize like think about the leaky holes in the business where you're losing leads and have them plug those holes.
Absolutely. Because you'll notice as you start training people, like your blind spots begin to arise, because now you're seeing it as like you're having someone else go through completely new. And so little things that you may do, another person may not do. And so you'll have a new perspective about it. And you can really think about your business in an entirely different way from that. But also once your time becomes more free because you're not taking phone calls and, they're off working on their own, you can put more attention into the other details that you may have not been perfect about previously.
Yeah. So I think we can wrap it up there, unless you have something else to add, Mike. No.
That's it.
All right,
Take it
guys.
easy.
As usual.
Oh, wait, not yet.
No, not yet. As usual, guys, buildassetsonline.com/playbook, where you can get our free course on how to build up your online business portfolio, and buildassetsonline.com/asset, which is our e-commerce course where we teach you how to build an e-commerce store so you can apply these tactics like we're talking about on this show, like hiring a salesperson. So that's it, guys.
Go do it.
Joe out.
Take it easy.